Nothing brings people closer together than near-death experiences. You could say this is the reason my cousins and I are as close as we are, because it just so happens we have a lot of them. Today I want to tell you about one in particular that I'm reminded of frequently. The time we almost blew up an entire resort back in 2013. When I say resort, I may be giving you the wrong idea, because this resort is what me and my family refer to as going up north, and we technically own the place anyway. It's in the middle of nowhere, and to say it respectfully, it's a complete dump. It consists of 7 cabins surrounding a bar open a few times a week. The bar is owned by an old man named Dave, who is supposed to be running the resort, but doesn't. He's grumpy, scary, and going on 78. He reminds me of one of those old men you see in the movies who buried bodies in their garden, and with his temper, I wouldn't be surprised if he had at least 20. Dave lives in the bar year-round until me and my family come up once a year for a week to ruin that for him. About 28 of us go up, and more than half are just my cousins. JC is the cousin I'm probably closest to, and we're usually the duo that causes a little havoc around there. JC is the same age as I, making us both 13 at the time. She was a little taller than me and still had an orange tint to her hair, which fueled her nickname as Ginger Girl. Behind the bar is where me and JC like to mess around. There's a long stretch of grass surrounded by thick woods. The only things back there were Dave's creepy garden and a giant propane tank the size of its twin-sized bed. Although told not to millions of times, the propane tank was our favorite place to dance and give the rest of our cousins private concerts. Now, let's get into the story. Since we were in the middle of nowhere, there wasn't much to do at night, so all the kids would play what we called Virus, which was basically just hide and seek tag. We played this game religiously and never got tired of it. There were so many good hiding spots, if you were brave enough to find them. Because of this, we thought it was a good idea to always have a partner. JC was always mine. Every night when it was dark enough, everyone would meet by the fire for the ritualistic Icka soda cracker. This particular night, I was late for the meeting, which meant I was it. It also meant JC didn't want to be my partner, which left me with her little sister Lily. Lily was 7 and had a tendency to get lost, so I was not excited about this. After a few minutes of complaining, I complied, and the rest of the gang dispersed, leaving Lily and I counting to 60 before heading off and trying to find everyone. We did exactly this and started to walk around. I remember looking up at the sky and noticing the stars looked beyond what I've ever seen before. Absolutely stunning. That's when I tripped on a stick, which wasn't out of the ordinary since you're walking in the pitch black. However, when I got up, I realized that, of course, Lily had disappeared. Again. I figured she'd find her way back to someone eventually, and I went on with my search. I tried listening for rustling in the trees, but all I could hear were crickets and the occasional frog coming from the lake. Then it clicked. I knew exactly where JC was because we went there every time we played. Behind the bar, laying down low somewhere in the field. So I began to head there. As I approached closer and closer to the field, I began to hear something. It sounded like music. I slowly got closer and the noise began to become more clear. That's when I heard it. The song. An absolute classic, and I knew just who was playing it. I walked closer to the propane tank and blasting the song, Pour Some Sugar on Me by Def Leppard, was JC. She was on the propane tank doing her signature dance. She noticed me and started to laugh, and began to sing louder. Still doing her dance, but even more erotically now. She did this dance whenever the song played. Actually, whenever any song played. It was a weird combination of kicking her feet and flailing her arms. It looked ridiculous, but of course, I joined in. Then the chorus hit. In unison, me and JC screamed, "Pour some sugar on." But before we could finish, JC slipped. Then everything seemed to go in slow motion as I watched this whole scene play out. Turning on her side, flying through the air, JC's foot hits the nozzle of the propane tank and breaks it off. There was a huge bang, like a gunshot. Then smoke and gas are flowing out of this tank like lava. It's so thick, I lose sight of JC almost instantly. On top of that, the noise coming from the propane tank is so loud that I can only hear muffled screaming of myself and everyone else now fleeing from their hiding spots. For some odd reason, I found this hilarious and began to tag people since I was still it. Then I realized, wow, I should probably run because this thing is full of gas and is very likely to blow up in my face. That's when I realized I forgot something. Lily. I was in charge of her, so I started to run around the field calling her name, and finally found her sitting on the ground crying, as usual. I picked her up and started to run to where everyone else was, the street. Dave was already there, and already knew JC and I were the culprits because of the countless times he told us not to stand on the damn tank. He just looked down at us, shook his head slowly, and said, I really hate when you people come up here." We all laughed. Then boom! An explosion. After a few minutes of shock, we began to walk back to assess the damage. The entire field was black, and Dave's creepy garden, destroyed. Me and JC looked at each other with amusement, but also terror. For years after, me and JC continued to come up and every time think to ourselves, we really almost blew this place up. And now, whenever we see each other, we play Pour Some Sugar on Me and just laugh, recalling the memories that song holds. So moral of the story, if you need something to blow up, call me and my cousin JC, because we're pretty good at it.